Well, welcome and thank you for joining my talk, which is entitled Is Leadership a Race? My name is Sam Strickland and I'm the principal of the Dustin School. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so on my Twitter handle at @StrickoMaster. And if anything that I talk about in this talk is of interest to you, you can either read my books, Education Exposed and Education Exposed 2, or come and visit the school. And we're more than happy to take visitors to Dustin. So this idea of leadership being a race, there are five kind of key things or key messages that I want to get across to you through this kind of 10-minute talk. One is about the importance of your vision and your values. The second is the culture and the behavior within your school. Thirdly, curriculum. Uh, and then the fourth aspect is to think about teaching, and then finally to think about staffing. And I appreciate in 10 minutes, this is kind of a pinprick into any one of those particular domains. But a common misconception, and actually something I remember living through many, many years ago, was this idea that everything had to be done within the profession at 100,000 miles an hour, and that school transformation could be achieved in 18 months. The danger with that is that you aren't bringing people with you. You are simply kind of dragging the bus at speed, and people are falling off the sides of the bus as you're going along. And that's either because they're not mission aligned, potentially it's because they didn't understand because you're going at such a speed, or they just simply didn't agree. And that's not just staff, that's also parents, pupils, governors, potentially as well. And I think there's a real danger when we go at those kind of high speed uh, changes or transformations, that we actually lose the purpose of what we're actually trying to achieve, and we don't embed anything. Everything becomes the next fad, the next silver bullet. So through this very brief talk, I just want us to think really carefully about how we can actually take our time. And our natural inclination is that we all have a vision of where we would like to be with our schools or with our departments. And I often talk about the school as the mothership and all of the different departments and areas that make up the school as the satellites. And we've all got this idea of where we'd like to be and trying to get there really quickly. But actually doing that can sometimes be the wrong thing to do. But it does go against our natural inclination of moving swiftly and quickly. And before I kind of get delving into any of this, I just want you to think about the fact that the thinking and the strategy and the planning behind any decision that you make could take you months to research, to read, to visit other schools, to discuss it with your own senior team or your colleagues. Um, Before then, you then go and launch something. But if you give staff a really finite amount of time to think about a change, the classic is an announcement's made on Friday for Monday, and I've lived and breathed that world where it's happened. I've been part of that kind of establishment where a decision's made on Friday for Monday. Staff haven't got a clue what they're doing for Monday morning, and it's actually almost borderline dangerous. So we'll take it then into each of these different aspects, and we're probably going to spend about 90 seconds on each of these. But the first element is your vision, and you've got to be really clear on what it is you want to achieve. What is the vision that you want for your establishment or for your particular satellite that makes up the establishment? And very often MPQs push you to think about this, and it sounds very lofty and very aloof when you first hear this. And I remember sitting through various connotations of MPQ, ML, and SL in earlier stages of my career, thinking this has nothing to do with my job, but actually it has everything to do with your job. And ultimately, the vision and the values and the ethos that you're trying to drive, often set by the head, are actually setting the heartbeat and the tone and the tenor of the mothership. And what I would argue here is you want these to be really clear, for them to be really concise, to be really well understood, and to be repeated, so people continually understand exactly what it is you're about. And again, at school level here, thinking about the children, the pupils, do they understand the school's vision? Because if they don't, then your vision isn't sitting where it needs to with the most important, the most relevant people within the establishment. I would always argue that the first thing you need to try and set, whether that needs to be slightly molded, slightly changed, or a full scale change, is the culture and the behavior of the school. And my starting point here, and I'm thinking about this through the lens of being the principal of my school, is you permit what you promote and you promote what you permit. And it's kind of an adaptation of Doug Lemov's saying of you permit what you promote. But it really is true. What the head wants, will permit, will promote, becomes the overall overarching culture of the school. Within that, though, behavior is hugely important. If you haven't got behavior where you need it to be, if there's a constant Achilles in your heel, that's the first thing you really need to hone in on and focus on, because that ultimately is a huge marketing tool for your school. It will help with staff recruitment, it will help with staff retention, it will help with parental and pupil recruitment and retention, because everybody knows where behavior wise, in terms of parents, which schools take behavior seriously and which don't. And the parents that want standards, the parents that want a culture that allows learning to happen, they will source those schools out. And the last thing anyone needs is a falling number on roll, because then that affects obviously your funding, and that's a massive, massive issue. So things for you to consider within this, and I'm not going to give the answers because I don't think there are answers, because every context and setting is different. But what are your red lines or non-negotiables? What are the things you simply will not tolerate? And within that, what will you do if somebody crosses those red lines? Will you have a sanction system? Will you not? Will you have a praise system? Will you not? Will you have a system of rewards? Will you not? Do you have centralized or decentralized detentions? And again, I would argue here, whatever you do, keep it really simple. That then takes us into the curriculum, because I think once you've got your culture where you would kind of roughly like it to be, you're never going to have it precisely, because it's always something a bit like the curriculum going to strive toward and for. The curriculum is the next biggest driver that's going to bring about the next biggest wave of change. And you can't really talk about curriculum properly until your culture is where you want it to be. My view is the curriculum is God. I actually think, and I keep being told that I'm known for behavior, but actually curriculum is far more important to me. And it's something that I was really immersed in since I've been a trainee. But it is also like building a cathedral. It's a lifetime body of work, and you're never going to get there. It's never going to be finished. There's always going to be something else that you can do. But really what I want you to think about with your curriculum is, what is it you want your curriculum to achieve? Why do you have the curriculum that you have? Or why would you like the curriculum that you want? What does a child leaving year 6, year 11, year 13, so a pupil or student, what do they actually look like? What do you want them to look like? What knowledge do you want your pupils to know? And why? Because these are powerful decisions, decisions around knowledge that we could be making, powerful curriculum decisions. How do you sequence your curriculum? And how do you ensure it's interleaved and serves in the truest sense as a progression model, so that the work that's done in year 3 is built on in year 4, year 5, year 6. The work in year 7 is builds on the end of key stage 2, and then the work in, say, year 9, how does that build on year 7 and year 8, and so on and so forth. But that's really important to think about that, and Claire Seeley beautifully encapsulates this as a storybook analogy. What does your story say about your school and your curriculum? And then that ties in with the enacted curriculum, teaching ultimately. And I've argued this before in previous talks that I've done, but the classroom is where the magic happens. All these other things that we're doing around our vision, our culture, behavior, curriculum, have got to free up the teachers to teach. And I call this the Halcyon dream. And if we all think back, why did we become a teacher? And it's a classic question that's asked of any ITT provider, any PGCE provider. I remember being asked this exact question by Christine Council. Why do you, Sam, want to be a teacher? And for the vast majority of us, it's about helping children. It's about children. It's about our passion for education, for our subject, if we're going down that particular avenue. It's about wanting to think about the curriculum in a broad sense, to think about the academia that underpins it and the scholarship that underpins it. But it's all about a passion for helping children to learn, ultimately. And that can only happen if a teacher can teach. And by that, what I mean is that the conditions and the parameters within any given school allow teachers to focus on the core job, and the core job is teaching. And also that we've engineered our systems in such a way that our teachers aren't burning out. And that links in with staffing here, because being brutally honest, teaching's a tough job. However we strip it back, even if we were to do the 32.5 hours on our paycheck in a working week, and no one does, everybody does at least 50 or 60, if not 70 hours a week. But the reality is those hours actually in the school building are hugely demanding. And being really true, teaching is panto, it's theatre. It's putting on an act for an hour or 90 minutes every single lesson, however long your lessons are, and doing that 4 or 5 times a day. It's the equivalent of asking Robbie Williams to put on 5 shows a day. That is, when you think about it in its own sense, that's really, really taxing. So what can we be doing to help support our staff? And at the Dustin School, we created a massive workload charter. And this is a commitment pledge of things that we were going to do to help support our staff. So to give you a few examples, and I appreciate, again, every setting is different, and some of these might sit with you and some of these you might want to challenge. We don't allow emails at weekends and over holidays. And that's been a real cultural changer and institutional changer for us institution. It's made a real difference to think that you get these kind of moments where you have no emails is great. But you've got to have your meeting structures in such a way that allows for face-to-face dialogue to take place. So we have weekly departmental meetings. We also hugely promote co-planning, and the co-planning of not just the curriculum, but also of the curriculum tools, the resources that underpin that curriculum. We won't have meetings as well for meeting's sake. So if there's nothing to talk about in any one given week, apart from those departmental meetings where there's always something because of the curriculum, then any other meeting we might have, we just don't hold it. There's no need. We also see 1265 in its entirety as not actually being a target. It's not something we're trying to aim and aspire toward. We're quite happy and comfortable in being well short of that. And if I take back that first point, or go back, sorry, to that first point about your vision, having one really clear focus for the year, underpinned by 3 clear drivers, which are really easily communicated and well-timely communicated to your staff, I think make a real big difference as well. So to kind of bring this to a close, I don't believe that leadership is a race. And I think if you can keep things clear, simple, and well communicated, you can drive really effective change. Thank you for listening. I welcome engaging with you on Twitter. Again, if you wish to visit the school, you are more than welcome to do so. But thank you ever so much for your time. It's greatly appreciated.